All right, Representative Phillips, thank you for joining me. Why do you want to be the next president?
I want to be the next president because America needs change. Voters are demanding change. Republican voters, Democratic voters, 80% of the country wants to see new choices to turn the page, to create a new American century. And as a Democrat, I have to tell you, I'm someone, Jackson, who is deeply concerned about the fact that President Biden, a good man, a man I respect, he and Vice President Harris will not beat Donald Trump. And I think that's very consequential to the country. I have great affection for people who appreciate former President Trump, but I find him to be a dangerous man, having been a member of Congress during his presidency. And the numbers are staggering. The consequences horrible. And America deserves chances and choices in democracy. And I believe it is time for a new generation to take that torch, to fundamentally change some of the great inequities in America, starting with affordability. People are struggling mightily in our country. Fuel prices and food prices and healthcare inaccessibility, a lack of childcare. We have a lot of crisis in this country, and we have wars around the world. And I think in some part it is people who have been in positions of power for decades. It's time to go. It's time for a new generation, not just in the United States, around the world as well. And that's why I'm running for president. I believe in a brighter future. I believe in the notion of a team of rivals, as Abraham Lincoln employed in his White House. The notion that an American president moving forward, in my estimation, needs to have a cabinet and people in the White House that represent the races, religions, backgrounds, geographies, and politics of the entire country. Not just one party, not just one perspective, not just a bunch of people who see things exactly the same way, but good, strong leadership, principled leadership for this 21st century needs a different way of doing it. And when I'm the president in the White House, there will be a dramatic change in how Americans are represented, and an end to this nonsense of division. And as the second most bipartisan member of the entire U.S. Congress, according to the Common Ground Committee, that's entirely why I do this. And that's why I wish to be president. I'm ready to be president. And if Americans agree, I will be president.
You talked about a lot of the issues there, but obviously your candidacy is raising a lot of questions amongst Democrats. You just said that Trump would beat Biden. Why do you think that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris could not win against Donald Trump? Do you think they've been doing it all wrong?
No, I think the president has served admirably. I think he promised to be a transitional president, a bridge, and I think he did so. Navigated us out of COVID after some terrible economic trauma, as you well know. But I got to tell you, this is not about me and what I think. This is about what Americans are basically screaming right now. Joe Biden and Vice President Harris losing to President Trump nationally by 5 to 9 points, according to the last polls. President Trump beating them in, I think, 5 of the 6 important battleground states. And sadly for the president, his approval ratings are hovering at historic lows, only rivaled by Jimmy Carter, who got slaughtered in the 1980 election, as most Americans remember. And all those numbers point to a disaster for Democrats next November if the status quo is retained. And Vice President Harris, her approval ratings are even lower. I'm not saying it's fair. I'm not saying it's worthy or deserving. What I'm saying, though, is in democracy, what matters is what people think. And if they think they're not happy, they're not happy. They don't need an administration or a president to tell them that they're wrong, or just keep the faith and cross fingers, everything's going to be all right. They're asking for change. Right now, Republicans have 12 candidates fighting for the nomination. And when there's only one, essentially, Marianne Williamson, challenging the president, I felt there needed to be more options. And it's time for generational change. And most importantly, if Democrats wish to win the next presidential election and not return a dangerous man to the White House, we're going to have to make a change ourselves. The good news is it's not up to politicians. It's not up to Washington. It's not up to MSNBC or Twitter. It's up to voters. And that's why I'm thrilled to be on the South Carolina ballot now. And that's why I'm thrilled to give people a chance to make a choice to change how we do things, because the way we've been doing it is not working and our country is in deep, deep crisis.
You mentioned Marianne Williamson. I was with her on Monday and I asked her about you entering the race. She said that she welcomes you to the race, but she also said the fact that you have a younger body doesn't mean you have new ideas. Would you like to respond to that?
Yeah, in fact, I noticed that you said that, and I actually texted her after that. I have respect for her for being courageous to do what is very difficult. It's very hard to get on ballots. It's very hard to take on an incumbent president, even when voters are asking for it. I'm not the same. I'm not the same as her. I'm certainly not the same as President Biden. Actually, I'm quite different. I'd be the only president in modern American history who comes from both a business background, a nonprofit background, and also in this case, almost 6 years of government service as a sitting member of the United States Congress. I also come at it from a very different leadership perspective, which is how I would run the White House. Zero-based budgeting. I would have a team of rivals I just described to you, people in the White House of all different politics, including some Republicans. I think that's really important. I have differences in policy. The fact of the matter is America is unaffordable, absolutely unaffordable in so many categories. We have to completely modify some of these systems so that people have a chance to succeed. I would legalize cannabis. I would allow research into psilocybin. That is something that the president is not talking about. I would secure the southern border. I would ensure that we start adjudicating asylum cases in the countries of origin. It keeps people safer. It allows them to keep their money, not give it to Mexican cartels and coyotes to get them across the border. We can have border security. And by the way, we should also be talking about northern border security. I come from the state of Minnesota. I'm not saying that there's a mad rush of terrorists coming across the border from Canada, but the fact of the matter is you can walk across a farm field in Manitoba into the United States of America, into my state of Minnesota, probably without detection. And I think in this day and age, with the risk around the world and bad actors wishing to do us harm, I think we have an obligation, the United States president does, to ensure that we have secure borders and security, also a thoughtful immigration policy. Now, there's a whole lot more, there's no question. But the fact of the matter is we need generational change. It's time for literally new ideas in terms of how we address artificial intelligence, social media, and high tech, and all the issues in the world where we have people who've been doing this for 30, 40, sometimes 50 years. The president is a good man, but he has been a senator since I was 3 years old. And I'm telling you, he's done some good work, but my goodness, look at the crisis that we are facing both domestically and overseas. And if we think that entrusting the same people in the same positions, doing it the same way is going to be the solution, we just have a difference of opinion. I respect you in America, but I'm also making the case for those who are tired of this nonsense, who want to repair the country, who care about their Democratic friends like they do their Republican friends and know that we got to work together if we're going to solve problems. I'm your guy. And I'm ready for it. And I want to do something entirely different that this country, I believe, is not just ready for, but desperately, desperately needs.
I want to talk about the issues a little bit. We've talked a lot about your, why you're running and so forth. But what about inflation? You mentioned these in some of your responses, but everyday Americans are having the most difficult time with inflation.
Yeah.
The gas prices continue to rise, food prices, all of this. This isn't news
Sure.
to you. Also, the border, and we also have these wars overseas where the United States, there's talk on both Republican and Democrat side. Should we give them help? Should we not?
Right.
What are your takes on those issues?
Well, let's start with inflation. First of all, we are better off than most countries in the world. That's true. Does that mean that all is good? No. That's kind of part of the problem right now is I believe that our government is trying to tell people that, hey, everything's fine. Our inflation's lower than other countries. Our GDP growth is good. Our wage growth and job growth is terrific. Unemployment is down. But that does not comport with, I believe, a number of people probably listening to this right now who are really struggling with the same things you just referenced. Fuel prices. I'm right now in New Hampshire in the Northeast. Home heating oil is very expensive for people, thousands waiting in line for subsidies. Grocery prices in some cases have doubled in the course of a few years. If you have a home mortgage and you chose an adjustable rate mortgage in ARM, you're going to see your housing price probably double shortly. This is not sustainable. Now let's talk about childcare. Why is it in the most prosperous country in the world that we provide an incentive for people to stay home instead of go out to work? That's because you can't afford childcare. Why are we the only country in the world that has a healthcare system that charges us double what any other country in the world charges us 3 or 4, 5 times more for our medicines than any other country in the world charges, has outcomes that are only mid-pack. And this is the United States of America, because there are some vested interest enterprises that are spending hundreds of millions of dollars a year, putting it into the pockets of people to try to keep the status quo, to keep all of the people in our great country from actually realizing the same benefits that most people around the developed world already have. And that means access to great education at no cost. That means childcare available, and that means healthcare available without breaking the bank. Too many people are living literally one illness away from bankruptcy. It's the truth. Too many people who want to be educated can't afford it, don't want to take on the debt, or if they do, can't even pay it back. And I just think about, when I think about the United States of America, what makes us so darn remarkable, it's simply a country that provides people opportunity. And then it's up to them. Then if you make it, you make it. But if you don't, that means that at least you had the basis to give yourself a chance, no matter your race, your religion, your geography, your politics. These are differences that I think are terribly, terribly important and require immediate attention. I know how to do that. By the way, why do corporations get to deduct their expenses from their taxes, but hardworking Americans and American families don't? In my state of Minnesota, there's no tax on clothing and on food, on groceries, to give people, working families, a little bit more of a boost. I think it's time to ensure that the tax code allows Americans to deduct those expenses: childcare, elder care, food, clothing, the things that you need to survive. The same way we allow a mortgage deduction, right, for our taxes. Why don't we do that to just give people a boost? Because right now we have such a separation between the haves and the have-nots in America, and it will be the downfall of our great country if we continue to support the very systems that are simply not giving tens of millions of hardworking Americans the chance to live the American dream. My family benefited from that. I believe it's my responsibility, and others like me, to ensure that future generations can do that too, no matter where you were raised, no matter your zip code, no matter your color, race, religion, or politics. And that's what I'm trying to do as the American president, to see this in a new light and bring some change to a country that is really ready for it in a thoughtful manner, to demonstrate to the rest of the world that we're still the great America that they love and that they knew.
You get a lot of credit for being pretty bipartisan. You're not an extreme Democrat like someone such as AOC, or, the very left-wing nature of the party. So as a Democrat who, is running in a very divided country where people are either on one side or the other, how do you win over Republicans who, maybe they supported Trump in the 2020 election? They see what they have with Biden. They're not happy with that. Maybe they don't want Trump to be president again. How do you get those Republican voters to come over to your side, knowing that you have a pretty good record being bipartisan?
Well, a few ways. Let me start with the first and most important, which is, if you are someone who has supported Donald Trump, I understand. I'm not here to demean you or criticize you or call you deplorable. I'm actually here to tell you I understand. I know why you're frustrated. I know why you're angry. I know why you want someone to actually change the system that has been working against way too many people in this country. I get it. I want to do the same thing. I want to do it in a manner that will actually get it done, that will be in good character, that will not demean and destroy other people on my way to doing so, that will actually enlist all of us to do it together. That's one. Secondly, it's the same way I did it when I won my district in Minnesota, a district that a Democrat had not won since 1958. How did I do it? By listening to people, by inviting people, not demeaning them, not confronting them, not shaming them. I invited people. That's why I have a lot of Republicans support me in Minnesota, a lot of independents, and a lot of Democrats, because I'm common sense. That's what I'm more than I'm a Democrat or a Republican. The labels are a problem. What I am is a common sense person. That's my label. That's my party, the Common Sense Party. And yes, I'm a Democrat. I'm a proud Democrat, and I can explain why. But here's another thing. Two of my very dear colleagues are South Carolinians. William Timmons, a very good friend of mine. Joe Wilson, the chairman of my subcommittee, of which I'm the ranking member, is a man that I've come to really, really appreciate, not just as a friend and as a colleague, but as an extraordinary guy with whom I've worked very closely. I've traveled to the Middle East with him. And I've discovered through this relationship with my friends from South Carolina that when we work together, when we break bread and get to know each other and spend some time, we can do amazing things together. And there are some Democrats that might watch this and say, how could I vote for a guy who would actually call 2 Republicans in South Carolina my friends? Well, let me tell you, that's the problem. And there are some Republicans that would say, I'm not going to vote for someone who hangs out with Democrats. That's the problem. But I believe that a better 80% of this country, of all politics, say, you know what, that's exactly what we need right now. And I'm friends with a lot of South Carolinians, as I was with Joe Cunningham before. Mr. Clyburn, I want to speak to him, a man that I respect, admire, and think has done extraordinary things for our country. Even when people say things about me that I think are unfortunate, unfair, and even unkind, the fact of the matter is, I know there are a lot of great people out there too that will give me the chance to introduce myself. I can demonstrate who I am, what I stand for, and most of all, how I will lead as president of the United States. And let me assure you, whether you're a Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, Independent, or unaffiliated, there's a place for you because we need you. You won't be excluded. We need you to be included, and that's how I'm going to lead, and I'm going to change how we do things, period.
I want to talk to you about a debate. As of now, the Democrats have not organized a debate. They present this as if it's a shoe-in for Biden. Why would there even need to be a debate amongst Democrats? What's your position on that?
My position is I believe the 2 major parties in the United States of America should be promoting 3 things. Access to ballots so that anybody in this country who is 35 years old and was born in the United States of America can enter this system. In New Hampshire, where I am right now, all it takes is that and a $1,000 check, and that's why there are 21 Democrats on the ballot here in New Hampshire. That's good for democracy. So I would argue that that's a beginning. Ensure that you can, as an American citizen who's 35, that you can compete. Secondly, voters. I think both parties should be making it easier for voters to participate, not harder. And in the case of New Hampshire, the president changed the primary system to have South Carolina go first, as you well know, right? That disenfranchised New Hampshire and Iowa. And I think that's because he lost. I know he's saying something different, but he lost in New Hampshire. He lost in Iowa. He won in South Carolina. Now, I love you in South Carolina. And I think it's awesome. And I would love to see South Carolina maybe go the day after maybe the New Hampshire. But the fact of the matter is, I think the real truth is the president lost those 2 states. And I think that's why the change was made. And I think that's unfortunate when people start changing the rules because it didn't work so well for them. And then as for debate, I got to tell you, should be the primary responsibility of both major parties to ensure there are debates. Look at the Republican debates. I mean, frankly, they're clown shows in many cases right now, and former President Trump is not even participating. I think there are a couple of people of decency on that stage, and it saddens me that they have to actually try to compete with people who are divisive, demeaning, and dispiriting. But the Democratic Party should be promoting debates, not limiting them or even expressing that there will not be any. And by the way, it is not a shoo-in, and that's the whole point here. The president is not only not a shoo-in, I'm afraid not only is he going to lose to Donald Trump, but I'm afraid that he's in a position right now where there might be other candidates that enter. And then are we going to have no debates? I don't think Americans should be subject to parties that refuse to put candidates side by side to make their case, even one time. And I trust that will change because I don't think Americans will put up with that. And surely when I'm president, I will promote competition. I will ensure it. I will ensure debate, deliberation, and respect and decency. And if we're going to disagree, we're not going to do it in a way that's disagreeable because America demands and deserves better.
Well, thank you so much. Best of luck to you in the campaign. Look forward to seeing you on the campaign trail.
Thank you. Keep the faith, everybody. Can't wait.